All right, let's take a look at some ways we can do a little bit of formatting to kind of clean up and make our spreadsheet a little bit more attractive, especially with the tables of data and some of the formulas that we've used. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, wait a minute here. This doesn't look like my table or like my spreadsheet. And that's okay. This is what we're trying to get to. Okay, so I kind of started with the end in mind here with this to kind of show you how I did some of these things. Now, yours doesn't have to look exactly like mine, but I'd like you to try some of these strategies for kind of, pizzazzing up, if for lack of a better way of putting it, or making your table a little bit more interesting, or just giving it some of its own character, if you will. So this is what we're trying to get to. So I'm going to kind of flip back and forth here between some examples. So let's start by adding any content that we need to add. Now, I did a few things here as far as what I added. I added a title, and then I added, or I changed this labeling here a little bit. So let's go to what you probably have right now, which looks something like this. Now, you notice right now I can't really put a title up here because I don't have any space for that. So let's take a look at how to do that. What I did to make some space, I just simply clicked on row 1 here, then I right-clicked or control-clicked on the cell to bring up this pop-up or drop-down menu here. You notice it says Insert One Above, and what that will do is that will put a row above here now. Got to do it one more time because I need 2 of them, so I'm going to go Insert Row Above again here. Okay, and then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to take away one of the rows here. So I'm going to take away this one because I don't really need 2 in between here. I need some extra space. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, control click or right click here, bring up the menu, and you notice there's a delete row function here. Now the same thing would happen with columns if I were to right click or control click on those, except it would say delete column, not delete row, or insert column, insert row. Okay, we're not going about spacing right now. We'll fix some of this stuff later. Let's get the content in here, like I said. So I'm going to go ahead and type in what the example has. M&M data table, charting colors, M&M data table, charting, whoops. And you can kind of do this along with me if you want while you're waiting here in an M&M snack bag. And that's kind of what we're doing here. We're kind of simulating that, although I didn't technically give you an M&M snack bag's worth, but we're kind of pretending that that's what that was. Okay, so that's the data we're charting here. So that's my title. I'll just leave it there for right now. And then remember, the other thing we changed here is I went down here and I kind of corrected this a little bit. I typed in amount, made amount a full word. Oops, amount of each color. Okay, like so. Okay, now it's cut off. We'll fix that in a second here. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, but now we have all the content that we want. All right, now let's take a look at maybe changing the size of my text so that it it stands out a little bit. It's a little bit small right now for people to see. So I'm going to change the size. And I'm kind of going in order here because it makes sense to do it this way. I wouldn't start changing the cells and stuff until I'm done with the size, because let's say I were to change this cell right now, but then I go change the size again, that's going to be too small again. So I'm going to wait till I do all that size work first, and then work on some of the spacing and other issues there at the end when it comes to the space issue. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of my text right now because I want to change the font of all of it. So I'm going to go up here, and here's my font controls. I don't have very many choices here. You might be seeing more than I'm seeing. For some reason, mine's a little different. I'm going to go Times New Roman. All right, that way. All right, and then I'm going to go up here. I'm going to make this size 18 because I really want the title to pop out. Okay, and then I'm going to make all this size 12. So make it a little bit bigger, but not as big as the title. We've talked about that strategy before. Okay, so let's kind of go back and take a look now. It looks like my font size is where I want it to be. Okay, let's talk a little bit about data here just real quick. Now, we mentioned the fact that we have this really long decimal here. But let's go ahead and shorten that down. The way we can take away some decimal places here and make it kind of just round up to the nearest things, we can just use these arrows here, okay? So if you want to make it longer, actually, you could do that, but we don't want to do that. We're just going to bring it down to the hundredths place here. I think that's pretty adequate for the data that I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then let's start talking about information as far as spacing goes. let me go ahead. I need to go ahead and fix this here because again, I can't see the word color. And I'm not going to double click because watch what happens here. If I double click this time, okay, and if I just double click this, it makes it really big because of the title, okay? And I don't want to do that. So I'm only going to make it as big as the information up here because I want to show you something different down here. I know this is still cut off, but I'll show you this in a second, okay? So just kind of making it that big right there, okay? So that's some of our spacing issue. The next thing that I want to do is show you a little bit of some of our spacing options as far as how did I get my title to be in the center of my data here. If you look back at the example here, you see that it's kind of in the center here. How did I do that? Okay, so what I'm going to do next is kind of skip to that a little bit here. And so what I did was, here's how to get that to work. What you need to do, first of all, is you need to merge, what we call merge the cells that we want the data to show up in, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and merge all these cells, okay, by highlighting them first. And then I'm going to go up here to where the format is, okay? And it says down here under the format menu, you'll see merge cells, and then we want to merge all of them. Now watch kind of what happens here to some of the borders here when I merge this at the end, okay? The borders disappear. You don't see them here anymore for these cells because what it's doing is treating this as all one big cell right now, okay? So if I were to click on this, notice it highlights everything. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit the centering button here to put the data in the middle. And now it's in the middle of these range of cells, so it kind of looks like it's centered, okay? Now down here we have a little bit different problem because we don't have enough room for the text, okay? And we can't really merge it because the data is right here. So instead what we can do is something called wrapping the text. All I'm going to do is I'm going to just click on this cell, go up to that format menu again. I'm going to go what we call wrap text. Now watch what happens when I wrap text, okay? It makes the cell big enough to allow some of the text to go down to the next level, kind of like a return, if you will, okay? And it just gives it enough room so that all the text can show, okay? Let's take a look at borders next. I'm going to go ahead and put some borders around my cells here. And I'm going to keep it pretty simple. Now there's lots of things you can do with cell borders here. But I'm just going to go up here and click. I'm going to highlight all my table here of information. I'm just going to use this option here because this will put borders around everything. Now you can change the style of the border if you want to go more of a dashed border. You can kind of mess around with that. I'm just going to leave mine solid, but you can do what you want. You can also change the color if you want to. I'm going to leave mine black right now. I'm going to do some color stuff a little bit later here. I'm also going to go over here and give this a border, okay, like so. And so now my cells have some borders, like my example. Again, feel free to be creative with that, okay. Last thing I'm going to talk about a little bit is a little bit more text formatting now. First thing I'm going to go up here is I want my title to stand out, so I'm going to use bold. Now, for some reason, I'm not seeing underline. I would probably put underline in there, but I'm not seeing that right now, so I'm going to leave that there. And then I'm going to format some of this stuff here, the data itself. And what I want to notice, this is left aligned in the cell, and this is right aligned. So I want them to center. So I'm just going to highlight the whole thing. I'm not using these right now. I'm going to leave these left aligned. But I'm going to highlight these, okay, and put like that. Now, one thing to know about spreadsheets for some reason by default, when the data is numerical, it'll right align it. If the data is text, like a word, it'll left align it by default. And most spreadsheet programs, not just Google, but most do it that way, okay? So now they're all centered. And then I'm going to add a little color here. I'm going to kind of color code my data by the color of the M&M. So I'm going to use red for red here. I'm going to use, orange. This is my text color controls. I'm just using, oops, sorry, that was the wrong one. Just put in orange, okay? Yellow. Now, yellow is going to be a problem because it doesn't show up very well. And we'll come back to that in a second. Let me just finish the rest of these, okay? Blue, green, pick a shade of green, go down to the bottom more, and then brown, okay? Now, I don't know about brown. This, for some reason, reminds me of brown, if that's accurate or not, but there we go, okay? Now, yellow, and here's another trick for you. Yellow doesn't show up very well because it's too faint and light. So I'm going to give the cells themselves some color, okay? I'm going to go up here. Now, this is where the fill color is for the cell itself, and you can do this for more than one if you want to. You can do it for all of them if you wanted to. I'm just going to do it for this one, for this example here. I'm going to go ahead and put that in like so, okay? You could use a color for all these if you wanted to, okay? but I'm just going to do that. So it gives it a darker background so the yellow shows up better. Okay? And so I think we're pretty close here now. We got some coloring and text. We did some alignment issues. We changed some style. That's what. Let's take a look at the example here. Yeah, we're getting pretty close, it looks like. I think the only other thing I did was I took these rows. There's a lot of space in here between the title and the table itself. I didn't want to put them right on top of each other, but I don't need that much space. I'm going to kind of creep this down a little bit, okay, just by clicking on that little border in between the row label here. And I can do the same thing here if I want to do it. Maybe I want to make it bigger. Maybe I want to widen it out a little bit, so I can make that one a little bit bigger. And then I'm just going to kind of bring my data here, or I'm sorry, my chart rather, or graph. Bring this up a little bit closer, so it's kind of in spacing with one another. And there we go. And so now I've taken kind of this bland table, gave it some character a little bit, gave it a little bit of visual identity, and made the data a little bit easier to understand and see, and summarize it in a way that people can analyze it. So the bigwigs, my bosses at M&M, can take a look at what's in their bags and if they like the color distribution or not. So some interesting data here, and some interesting ways that we can take data and present it in an easy-to-read format using spreadsheets.